Is your knee pain worse after physical therapy? If it is, then I think it might be time to seek out a second opinion. And here's why. One of the things that you might have knee pain after physical therapy could be the fact that your physical therapist might not address the mobility in your hips first before addressing your knee issue. And you might wonder, why is a hip even more important when it comes to knee pain? That is a good question, because your knee tells your hip what to do. And a lot of the musculatures and muscles in the hips tells the knees what to do. And they start from the hips. So it is important that you look at the hip first, the mobility, specifically the mobility in your hip first before you start to tackle the knee problem. The second thing that we see quite often when your knee flares up after physical therapy is the therapist might be pushing you as opposed to nudging. So at Empowerment Physical Therapy, we like to kind of implement the philosophy of nudging as opposed to pushing. Because if you push too far, you kind of flare up your system. Now, if you don't do enough, you won't make a change. So it's a very sort of a gray area that you kind of have to dose. What we call a sort of dosing. The same way your doctors, when they prescribe a medication, that they give you a certain dosage, and they often have to kind of make sure that they give you enough dosage to make a change, but not too much to overwhelm your system. So when your therapist, if your physical therapist kind of overloads you and does not recognize the fact that you can't do too much, it's going to flare up your system. And that's when you strain your knee. That's when you walk out of that session and you're in more pain than you were when you first walked in. So we kind of also implement the philosophy of you want to be challenged, but not overwhelmed. So exactly, what does that mean when you're in session? So if you're able to complete it, but you're kind of shaking and struggling, that's when I know that you're challenged, but not overwhelmed. Because the fact that you can complete that exercise, but doing so while struggling in the process, tells me that your body is still trying to figure out how much force, what to recruit to kind of lift and do and complete that exercise. So you want to be challenged, but not overwhelmed. And then thirdly, your therapist might be starting you with the exercise before they have you start with stretching, which is probably one of the most fundamental things that we talk about in Empowerment Physical Therapy and we stress on is we want you to stretch out first before you strengthen. Because guess what? And what most people tend to do during the session is they'll go right into the exercises, something to strengthen. They'll start picking up weights. And guess what happens when you have a tight muscle and you strengthen it? It gets tighter. And when that gets tight, it's going to create a vicious cycle that's going to create pain down the line. That's why your sessions are worse. That's why your knee is worse after the session. So 3 things that we just spoke about in terms of why your knee pain might be worse after physical therapy is first, your therapist may not be addressing the flexibility in your hips. And that secondly, they might be overloading you. Which is more of kind of pushing you too hard and is causing that flare up. And thirdly, they're doing more strengthening. They're strengthening you first as opposed to stretching. So those are the 3 things that we find in some of our patients who've had a bad experience somewhere else and have came to us and found our approach uniquely different. And at the end of the day, it's finding someone that works for you. So without further ado, if you want to be empowered with a mindset, tool set, and skill sets to recover from injury, to stay mobile and independent, and lead an active lifestyle for many years to come without relying on pills, injections, or surgeries, come join us, subscribe, and I look forward to talking with you. Until next time, stay in power.